this was back when the Farm Bill passed and they were doing cold ethanol extractions in the fields, and they would just pull up these refrigeration trucks. It's like, here's a Safeway refrigerated truck that has been fully converted and fabricated into a mobile extraction unit, and like those were super cool. So watching the ingenuity in this industry and taking, you know, technologies from other areas and then repurposing them and giving them new life, I mean, it's kind of cool. It's always been so cool to me.
I just love it. And, you know, that's what I really love about the cannabis industry. And, like, a big part of, like, why I joined it, right, was because of just the potential for innovation, you know? Just to go from 10 years ago when we were, like, blasting with tubes to, like, today where you have, you know, just massive supercritical CO2 systems with supercritical fluid chromatography, where you have vapor static, where you have ethanol, where you have BHO, CLSs, and all this beautiful technology that's, you know, come to fore in just such a short period of time. You know, how I think about it, right, is, you know, cannabis science, like, ended in the mid-1930s, right? And so we have, you know, 80, 90 years of technology to apply to this industry that has never been able to be applied for. And so I think that's a big part of why people are like us, you know, look to other industries and say, oh, you know what would probably work really well is a flash tube dryer, right, for this application. You know, lumber industry runs thousands and thousands of pounds like a minute through these things to make MDF boards. So what we did is we took that concept, and Steve Bondi and Amara Hazelwood and Steve Jason, the ESP guy, they came together and basically made a bunch of changes, a bunch of customizations, and managed to make it work for cannabinoids. You know, what's really interesting about electrostatic precipitation is that it was used in the pollution control industry. That's where it is generally used. They put, like, you know, ESPs the size of buildings on the top of power plants, smokestacks to produce. You know, and if you've ever been to a casino, you know, those smoke eaters for people like the Wynn Casino in Vegas, you know, where people smoke inside the casino. Those are miniaturized ESPs that suck the smoke out, so it's, you know, everybody doesn't have to smell that. So it's pretty cool that, like, you know, pollution control and lumber processing come together to create cannabinoid extraction. In a totally new way, right? And that's all the result of Steve Bondi, Steve Jason, and Amara Hazelwood. Just these beautiful brains coming together and doing it.
Can I ask you a little more about that static sort of process and how that works? Like when you're putting product through, what do you guys generally get out? Is it just a nice, rich, full spectrum product?
That's the cool part, right? Is like, so essentially when you use hot air, right, you're vaporizing terpenes, you're vaporizing cannabinoids, right? And you get the full broad spectrum of cannabinoids, right? So like our oil coming out will have, you know, every major cannabinoid that's in the biomass material. So we'll have, you know, THC, CBD, CBG, you know, we get THCV, CBDV, you know, all the cannabinoids will come out, so you have a very broad spectrum of cannabinoid content, and then you end up with a subsection of the terpenes. So because we're using a specific a cannabinoid-specific temperature, we end up with a set of terps that boil right around that same point, that vaporize right around that same point. So we're going to get a lot of beta-caryophyllene, we're going to get a lot of alpha-humulene, we'll get some limonene, you know. We're not going to get those alpha and beta pinenes, but we're going to get those kind of mid-boiling terps. So you end up with a very broad spectrum oil. But what's cool about the oil is the other parameters. So first of all, when you use electrostatic precipitation, vapor static extraction, you end up with a very, very high quality oil in terms of potencies. Right? You know, we've had oils straight out of the machine above 80% cannabinoid content.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, and if you look at like that comparatively to other methodologies, that's a big increase in where you're starting off for your next steps in post-processing, right? Like, let's say distillation is your next step, right? You know, now you're starting off at 75, 80%, you know, instead of starting off at like 60%, 65%, and it gives you a much easier process to go through. The other thing is, that we decarboxylate in the vapor phase. So, we're getting over 95% decarboxylation just in the extraction process itself. So the oil, your devol decarb phase is just so much easier, simpler, and faster because you're not having to start off, and remove solvents. You're not having to, polish off the remainder of solvents and then decarb the product. The next thing that's really cool is it has very, very low wax content and almost no sugar. A lot of times, depending on the quality, there'll just be absolutely none. And so that's great, right? Because for distillation, you want that really clean input material. And since a significant fraction of the oil is going to go through a thin film or short path or whatever, it's a really great input. So we have low wax, low to no sugars, high potency, 95% or more decarbed in the process, but and out of the machine, you just get this nice amber oil. The other interesting thing about the oil is that we can get high quality oil from very low quality input material. The mantra in the industry is always like gold in, gold out, right? Well, we can take stuff that's for example, we were just running for this factory acceptance test some stuff that was 6%. Cannabinoid content. It was they're a CBD manufacturer, so it was hemp. So it's 6% stuff. Yeah. Okay. It's not good. And we were still able to get above 70% cannabinoid content in the oil and get that broad spectrum, low wax, low sugar, beautiful amber colored oil.
That must mean you guys have a very, very high, efficiency on the conversion from biomass into extracted oil. What would you think, if we just took your standardized product, what would you think that your extraction efficiency is?
So our extraction efficiencies are, of course, they'll range, with the input material. So that 6% material, obviously what we try to do is leave about 1% cannabinoid content in the post-extracted biomass, and the reason for that is the kinetics of the extraction, right? So we want to make sure that the biomass comes out of the machine, dried out, about 1% cannabinoid content and safe to handle, right? So it's not too hot, not too dry, right? And so essentially when you're talking about, 20% material, you're getting really, really high extraction efficiencies.
Yeah.
When you start with the 6% material, you're still getting much better extraction efficiencies, in my opinion, than you would get off of other technologies because you're getting that much higher quality oil that you don't have to go through as much post-processing to clean up. And you're able to just maintain that quality across, all sorts of different inputs. So basically the oil will come out at the, with the 6% stuff, we were talking about 70% cannabinoid content. When we're running 20% stuff, we're getting above 80%, 83% cannabinoid content in the oil, which is really great. And the efficiencies are just super high. So, it's all going to be based on your input, but 15% to 1, you can get that percentage, 10% to 1, 6% to 1. Yeah.
Beautiful. Man, the other thing that really interested me about this was the clean in place, because that is something that is so incredibly hard. And you already alluded to it earlier, but when you go to distill, cleaning a distillation system or a coil or a rotovap, especially after a run like that, is always a nightmare because you have to break down the entire laboratory. The entire extraction facility gets cut and cleaned to GMP standards, and it's never a fun process. So a CIP is something that is just mind-blowing to me. How did you guys pull that off?
Well, so it was initially we were trying to determine what our clients really need beyond just the technology itself to help them be the most efficient, right? Our main ethos is sustainability, safety, efficiency, and having a, solvent-free process. And so as part of that, we were trying to ask, what can help you be more efficient? And what ended up happening, actually, which is interesting, is a lot of our clients, it's turning out, are international clients, right? And it makes sense, right? You know, like somebody in Southeast Asia, you know, it has a hard time accessing solvents, right? It's very expensive. You know, they have to do EU GMP level of compliance to run, you know, CBD material through, or they're getting prepared to eventually do THC material and they want to have high compliance. So they kept asking us for EU GMP level compliance systems, right? And as part of that, you know, we were like, well, our ethos is that we want continuous processing. We want efficient processing. So we can't like be like, okay, shut this whole thing down, take it all dang apart, especially when it comes to the big units. So like our VS5000, that would just be a horrible experience, right? So what we did is we worked with our engineering team. So our engineering team is amazing. It's headed up by Levi Wells now, and he has like, you know, 15 of our 25 employees are like the engineering team. So what they did is actually pretty cool. So they put these CIP nozzles around the entirety of the electrostatic precipitation core, right, which is the thing that would just be really difficult to clean if you had to do it manually. And then these nozzles were located so that you could literally pump a water acetic acid or just hot water, whatever kind of salt, if you wanted to use IPA, you know, through this thing at extremely high velocities so that it would just shear off any remaining material and dissolve it or break it down enough so you could just pump it out. And it just recirculates over and over and over again and then it empties out. And it's all done on one little pump skid, which is really nice. So you're not having to like move hoses around crazy ways or anything like that. You're just basically turning levers on this pump skid and it'll just suck up whatever you're going to use, water, acetic acid, hot water, you know, even IPA, and then pump it through, recirculate it, and then pump it out again as a waste liquid, dirty liquid. And so when you do that, you end up just being able to clean the core extremely deeply and quickly, and with only really, you could do it with one person on our giant, biggest unit, which is nice. So that's a great thing, and it helped our clients be able to say, okay, you know, we'll be able to have EU GMP levels of compliance without having to like take down this whole thing and go through and clean each of the little tubes in the core, you know?
Yeah, I do. This is like honestly revolutionary. Nobody else has done that yet. Nobody else has done that. Yeah, especially to compliance standards too, which is something that's, I'm sure somebody else has done it, but it's just now coming onto the scene. I've like never seen it before. And just like you, I've been working in this industry since 2012, back when everything first started going off. You know, it was the wild, wild west back then. You didn't even need the green badge to be in any of the grow operations or to work with extraction tech. So the industry's made leaps and bounds, and we're really getting into this awesome like healthcare, wellness, professional sort of area that I've always wanted to see this go to. So seeing these like high level extractors with like awesome process controls and, you know, clean in place is just astounding me. I can only wish that for my last 6 years we had something like that in my facilities. So,
well, I'll tell you something cool. You mentioned process controls, and you know, so like even on our biggest unit, right, everything is operated from a touch screen this big. You will never be going off and turning levers anywhere besides the CIP skid when you're going to do that. Everything else is fully automated and touchscreen interface. All the data is logged, and if we can access it here. So if there's, you know, we can push new software updates to it. You know, we can look at if there's any faults from 10,000 miles away and fix them. And, you know, that was a big part of being able to maintain continuous processing. And, yeah, our automated process control system, I mean, there's just, like, sensors everywhere. It's, like, super cool to watch this thing integrate all this data and then produce, you know, beautiful reports with all sorts of little graphs that show you, like, how your run went and everything. And so, really, even for our smallest all the way to our biggest units, one person can operate the whole thing.
One tech can run the whole thing?
Yep. So that's it. I mean, really, like, when we run this thing, I mean, I'll go do something else most of the time, you know? I mean, the main thing that the operator has to do is make sure there's biomass going in. You know, whatever conveyance system you're using, just make sure it's full of biomass. You know, we have a big auger that just like constantly augers in material. So we just, you know, pour a super sack into that and let it go. And then the output, you know, is going to continuously take the post-extracted material out. So you just want to make sure that, you know, if there's a conveyor system or whatever, that it's going somewhere, you know, to your waste processing. And then the oil is continuously pumped out automatically as well. So you just got to make sure that wherever you're putting your oil, you know, still is, you know, not overfilled, essentially. So that's it. That's all the operator has to do. Once you reach equilibrium, I mean, really, it's very little work. You just kind of are just checking those things, just putting biomass in if you don't have an automated system, and making sure your oil has somewhere to go.
So that brings up another great little question is like, when oil comes out, you know, a lot of people like, and this is one thing that has always got me about like the hydrocarbon extraction is even when you do a hydrocarbon extraction, you still have to bring it out and wash it in ethanol.
Yeah.
So you're just constantly re-exposing your product that you just spent a lot of time and effort trying to extract as cleanly and as quality as possible, but then you just have to introduce it back to more chemicals. Mm-hmm. I mean, how do you guys handle that product that comes out at the end? Does it need a washing at all anymore, or is it already like, it sounds like it's ready just to go straight into testing?
Right. So basically, like, we have a gear pump system. So all of the bottom of our core is jacketed, so it's water jacketed, so it keeps the oil nice and warm, so it'll flow out continuously. And then, like, where you go with that is up to you, but, like, you know, you can pump it into, so for example, this unit that we just finished the factory acceptance test for, we're sending out to Utah. The company is called Red Mesa Processing. They do large-scale hemp processing. And basically what we have planned is it's going to pump straight out of the ESP into a jacketed buffer tank, so you know, straight into a buffer tank, sealed buffer tank, and then that buffer tank is going to pump straight into a 12-inch beaker and wrench thin film, and it's going to go through 2 stages of distillation, and then off into isolation. So they're making mostly isolate with it. Yeah. So in terms of like processing and post processing, you know, there's a couple things that you can do, but you know, in my opinion, the best thing to do is just to have a big buffer tank and just pump it straight into that, and then have that pump continuously into a thin film, and then have that thin film, you know, pump continuously into your next stage of processing. And so, you know, be that isolation, or if you are going to do, you know, homogenization to make vape pens, or whatever you're going to do, you know, you can even winterize it. For example, if you want to like remove, you know, every little bit of lipids, you could do it post distillation, and then save yourself a lot of money and save yourself a lot of solvent and time if you wanted to. Quite frankly, I've been making vape pens just running this thing straight out of the machine and through even just a short path system, because I just have this little dinky short path that I have from like years ago. It says like Lab Society, like 2-liter system, and I run that, and then I have like a 20-liter short path that I use for bigger runs, and I just make vape pens straight out of that. And so, you know, each of our clients has done different things. So like our first client, for example, they went and took their oil out, and then they would run it through they actually did a winterization on it, because they wanted that like hyper de-wax stuff. And I'm like, we're talking about like 2-3% wax content, which is like very minimal, but they just wanted to get every little bit of it out. So they did that, and then ran it through a VTA, and then just made the most gorgeous distillate on it. And they ended up selling that to an edibles company called Grune, who then made these awesome like pearls, these little edible pearl things. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
Wow. What do you guys generally see as like a paraffin content or a wax content in like your standard extraction, like before it goes into like a distillation or anything like that? Like, where do you guys see that landing?
So I run everything through you know, various tests, right? So like, you know, like I said, I used to work at RM3, which was the first ISO certified testing facility. So I'm like the only one that knows how to like really run HPLC. So I run the HPLC as well as my other job duties. And so I'll do testing. Actually, we just hired a new chemist that's going to take that over, so I'm training her right now. It's really cool.
Yeah.
But we'll run potency testing. We'll run wax analysis. We'll run water solubles analysis. We'll run it through short path distillation to just figure out how it distills. And then we'll send it away to the third party to do the heavy metals, pesticides, things like that. And so the things that we just can't do in-house. So when I run wax analysis, I'll generally get between 2 and 3% lipid content, and I'll do that with a methanol winterization because it's a lot more complete, a lot faster. So I don't have to do like super chill it overnight or anything. And I end up with this just gorgeous. Here, actually, I have some right here. I just end up with this gorgeous white wax that comes out of it. Very minimal amount. Sorry, probably not getting a good image there, but like,
I can see it.
Yeah, it's like a beautiful white color. So, you know, like you get like a yellow color a lot of times, or like a darker tan, and this just comes out this gorgeous white. I actually was thinking that if you were going to winterize it, you should keep that wax and make like a chapstick with it or something, you know. But yeah, like cannabis dried, you know, like Burt's Bees style. Mix it with some beeswax, man, and then you could have, and then even so you could put some terps in it, man, and have like a cannabis chapstick.
You're extracting such a little amount of wax when you do it. You'd have to do a lot of extraction for that.
It's true, but I mean, you run the 5,000. I mean, you run the 5,000. That's going to be, you know, 250, you know, kilograms a day or whatever of output at like 10% material or whatever. So like, yeah, you're gonna end up with a lot of oil on the big ones, and then and be able to use that for all sorts of purposes. And then the post-extracted too, you know, the post-extracted biomass, man. I mean, so that's you know, like when I mentioned about another one of our main drives is sustainability, right? You know, post-extracted material, you know, in the industry today, a lot of times just throw it away. You know, you got to dry it out, make sure it's solvent-free before you can get it out of the building. You know, you end up with, you know, stuff that's just, you have to do some level of further processing that causes expense before you can actually do it. Mm-hmm. And there's obviously going to be still, you know, issues even with that at times, depending on the technology you're using. With us, you know, it comes out of the machine at like 1% water content, 1% cannabinoid content, totally just perfect for any sort of like, you know, composting, pelletization, you know, even like a cogen facility you could use it for, the big ones. So, and that's like really part of what we're trying to do in the industry is just really try to provide a, you know, the ability to the client to, you know, use every single part of that plant and in a way that's beneficial to them and to the world and to the consumer.
That's very cool. That's very, very cool.
I wanted to ask further. Did you recently do some work in Thailand as well?
Yeah. So I actually did a couple things. So I'm on the board of a company called Cultiva. They're actually based out of Laos. So I went down to Thailand to do two things. One was to give a speech at Cannabis Business Asia Summit about vapor static, which was super exciting. Everyone was like, "Oh, dang, this thing is great!" And of course, in Thailand, you know, there's such development in the cannabis and especially the hemp industry going on right now. Thailand's really a leader in the Southeast Asian region of promoting the use of hemp and cannabis. And so it's a really exciting place to be. And so I went down there, did a great speech, presented the vapor static system, did a little vacation in Phuket. Had to do that at Phuket. and then I went up to Laos to work on the facility up there. So I'm a advisor to the board, and what I do, I'm on the board, but I'm the scientific advisor. And what I do is designing their entire facility. So they're going to use vapor static as their extraction technology, but right now we're just designing an entire testing facility up there. So to be able to provide the Laotian agricultural community, not just hemp, with a full-scale testing solution, you know, because Laos actually doesn't have any. They send all their stuff to Thailand and Japan for testing. So we're designing the first really full-scale testing facility in the country. And then after that's implemented, then they're going to go on to hemp extraction and processing. And so they're like super stoked on vapor static because in Laos it's just so hard to find, you know, it's just so inefficient to use other solvent-based technologies and technologies that are less robust, like CO2, for example. You know, one of the best parts for the international community about vapor static is just there's almost very little moving parts in the system. In fact, the electrostatic precipitator has no moving parts inside of the core, because you're just creating an electromagnetic field. There's no anything really going on in there besides the formation of the electromagnetic field. So the system has very few moving components, very few opportunities to break down, and so that's why they're really excited. Because in Laos, you break something, it's going to be like weeks before you can get it.
Yeah. I mean,
really
even
cool.
in America, if your machine breaks, I mean, you lose a tenth of your market share to your competition.
Well, and if you're running 5,000 pounds a day, I mean, every day is tens and tens of thousands of dollars. You're down for a day, like, you're losing a lot.
Yeah. Wow. How much can you pump through that little machine? When I say little machine, I mean, it's obviously a big machine. How much can you put through it in a day? Or like the big one that you just got done doing, what's its like max pass?
So it's actually kind of interesting. So we rate it at 5,000 pounds a day, but it depends on the material you're putting into it. So like on that 6% material, for example, you can actually run more, because it's all about vapor pressures. So,
okay.
But essentially 5,000 pounds a day is that unit. And when we say day, we're talking a 24-hour cycle, because it's a continuous system. It's meant to just continuously operate with one person sitting there and being its minder. So 210 pounds an hour, essentially, is that device.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. 3.5 pounds a minute, 210 pounds an hour, 5,000 pounds a day. And that's actually not the cool part about it is, like, this is the only, in my view, solventless technology that is truly scalable. Like I said, ESPs, they build these things the size of buildings to put on power plants. The flash tube dryer systems come out of timber plants that run thousands of pounds a minute, much less hours. So this technology is essentially infinitely scalable. Right? So we could go, 5,000 is just what we thought would be a good size for the hemp industry in particular. Actually, the first one we sold was the cannabis industry, but, the hemp industry is what we were pushing for in that size. But you can go 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000. The sky's the limit in this kind of technology. And we already know it's capable because there's systems out there that use the same technology that run thousands of pounds a minute, It's pretty crazy. So infinitely scalable tech. But the unit that we currently have is 210 pounds an hour.
Wow.
And then we also have smaller units, of course. That's just the biggest unit. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're in a facility that has a second shift, or you run 24 hours, that's a lot of processing power that you guys have.
Yeah, incredible. That's really the goal, right, for hemp, like hemp, you get this giant harvest in the fall, and, you should just run that thing 24 hours a day until you pump through,
Yeah.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on our podcast and educating us. I know if people want to find more info and more education, they can follow you at Shatter Girl Jacqueline, correct?
Yeah, so my personal Instagram is Shatter Girl Jacqueline, and then there's also the Boulder Creek Technologies Instagram. There's bouldercreektechnologies.com, which is our website. We also have a submission form if you'd like to receive more info. And then, of course, we are located in Arvada, Colorado. So if we love doing demos, like our main thing is with the new technology, we want to be as transparent as possible. So we want, if you want to come check it out, we would be glad to show you. That's our goal, is to be an open book, and we would love to have you. We would love to do a demo for you anytime. So if you're in the Arvada area, reach out to us, and we'd be more than glad to show you some stuff. And if you guys want, really quick, I know we're kind of running low on time, but I can kind of show you some of the stuff depending on how far they got it taken down. We'll see how far they've gotten on it. Oh yeah, see. Okay, so this is in some stage of disassembly, but essentially this is the core of the 5,000 pound a day ESP unit, and you can kind of see how that's what it looks like.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah, isn't that neat? There's actually 316, I think, tubes, and each of those tubes has an electrode in it. And this is our control panel here. We build our control panels in-house. So you can see we got doing a podcast. He's actually working on the control panel, taking it apart. But we actually build the control panels in-house. And then Hey, you mind if I open the door here? Thanks, man. And then this is our extraction. The flash tube dryer system. So there's 5 rows of tubes. There's only 3 in here right now. And then there's a big cyclone. You can see here underneath the rotary airlock system. So that's going to continuously pump biomass out. And then this guy here, this one is going to continuously pump biomass in. And then this is one of our air heater units. It's pretty cool. We also have a custom water system that shock cools the vapor, which helps it condense better and also removes a significant fraction of the wax, fats, and lipids before it actually condenses it in the ESP. So there's actually 3 different technologies. The flash tube dryer, the ESP, and then the water module is actually completely custom by us. You need it for the cannabis industry. So that one's all us. And then all of this is all patented to the max, yeah. This thing right here is actually pretty cool. So the exhaust, right, of the system, we want to make sure that we're not, pumping any air that might have like a smell to it or anything like that off into the world. So this is actually an afterburner unit. And essentially it runs a very small amount of natural gas and just burns off the exhaust so that it's like the exhaust is like completely benign. Just smells like hot air. It's kind of cool. So, yeah. I don't know. I know it wasn't like the best visuals, but I thought you might like to like see that, and I know it's like.
I think what's cool is your passion about it. I think that just comes out. So really appreciate your passion and enthusiasm for it.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be on this team. This team is like the coolest team I've ever worked with. I spent 5 years as like a lone wolf, so I was kind of like scared about working with the team again, but I just loved it. Steve Bondi, Rick Bondi, the CEO, he is so awesome, by the way. He's a badass. And then Levi Wells, our director of engineering, the whole install crew, the rest of the engineering team, our operations guy. It's just like such a beautiful group of people to work with, and we're all just really, really passionate about what we do, which is why we do stuff that like work on weekends and things like that. It is still a startup, so we gotta have a lot of hats. So if you're not passionate, startups can be pretty tough. So, but everyone here just loves this industry, loves this plant, loves what it can do for people, and so we want to be a part of bringing that in the best way possible to the customer and to the patient as well.
Dope.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it. We'd probably set up a demo or something like that, but if you guys want to check it out too, be sure to follow them on their Instagram. Visit them in Arvada, Colorado. Thank you so much, Jacqueline.
Thank you, guys. It's really been a pleasure chatting with you, and come by for a demo. We'd love to have you.
Awesome.
It's like explosions.
Back of the room with a drink in my hand and a blink, I demand you to cut the lights. Acting a fool, got a scheme and a plan, need green in the bag, I'm gonna up the price. Only in the city for a couple nights, posting for the video to up the likes. Don't be trying to hit me cause I ducked the right, I'm about to blow like Dizzy with the trumpet pipes. Drunk all night, I'll take a Sprite, wait, let me get a whiskey just in case. Hit me with a striptease, love to chase. Petty with the 6-speed, cut the brakes. Ready with the coffee pot, will top me off, I'm mopping, nodding off and off a lot. Now wash it down from off the waffle spots, only place left I can sober up. Hold up, wait a minute, just woke up on a random futon. Phone is cracked, still got my shoes on. Lace them up and get a move on the road.